Looking for a fresh style? Come to Hairspray Salon, your full-service destination for beauty. From cuts, coloring, and perms to flawless formal styles and makeup, our stylists do it all. Treat yourself with gel, dip, or acrylic nails, plus relaxing pedicures and professional waxing services. Need a thoughtful gift? Ask about our gift certificates. Hairspray Salon is open Monday through Friday, with Saturdays available by appointment. Feel confident, look beautiful at Hairspray Salon.
United Country Nelson Real Estate is your trusted place to go when looking to buy or sell. Licensed in 3 states, our team of experienced agents is ready to help you find exactly what you're looking for. Whether it's a home in town, wide open farmland, hunting and recreational property, or that perfect piece of land to call your own. With United Country Nelson Real Estate, you get the best of both worlds. Personal hometown service backed by nationwide exposure. Find us online at nelsonsoldit.com, and remember, no one knows the country like we do.
All right, CF Rainey here on another one of our Sports Central interviews sponsored by Harrison County Community Hospital. Joined once again this week by South Harrison varsity girls coach Kale Watson. And Coach, last week we talked just before your tournament championship game versus North Harrison. And so maybe talk about that game a little bit. A young North Harrison team, definitely a much improved North Harrison team from a year ago, but you guys were able to get the victory and become South Harrison tournament champions again this year.
Yeah, obviously having watched them on film, we knew they were much improved from a year ago or even 2 years ago. Like I said, I think last time we talked, Coach Long always does a good job with his teams. Obviously, he's a good coach, gets them ready to play. So we knew coming in they were going to present some things that we had to take care of. I would say that was probably our best game all week. Obviously, you want your championship game to be your best one. I think just from a full court pressure standpoint, we did a really good job in rotations. We flew to the ball. We talk a lot about being high-handed when we get in a trap. We got to put air underneath it. I thought in probably the first 5 minutes of the game, maybe 4. I'm not sure how many times they got it across half, just because our pressure was so intense. Girls did a really good job of making sure we didn't foul. That's the big thing for us when we're pressing. Got to limit fouls so that the ball, so that we're not putting people in foul trouble in. We want the ball. We want it to move. We want it to be quick. We want our rotations to kind of take care of the turnovers. And I just thought from start to finish did a really good job on offense. And they surprised us with man. That's something that we weren't quite ready for. But I thought we did a pretty good job of adjusting and getting some good looks once we kind of settled in against their man defense. And obviously the rest of it kind of took care of itself. And the girls did a good job of winning that for the 3rd year in a row. So pretty proud of them.
So then we get out of the weekend and no school Monday, which that's always a weird thing when you're playing a game on a day where you don't have school. And as well as you played on Friday night, right? And I can see the look on your face as you know where we're going. That game versus Maysville, and it was a huge game because it's a conference game. You're trying to stay atop the conference standings. You're trying to stay undefeated in the GRC for another season, which would make it 4 in a row. And a Maysville team that was sitting there right at the top of the conference as well came in, and that game did not start probably the way you would have liked to have seen it start. You did get the win, but it didn't start the way you would have liked to have seen it.
No. Yeah, that was a game that I was a little weary of, just coming off of, you're trying to avoid a trap game if you can avoid it as a coach. And that one kind of had the makings of it, no school. But that's no excuse. We just came out, did not play our brand of basketball, and particularly on the defensive end. That's where I kind of watched the first 3 minutes, like what's our intensity going to look like? How are we closing out? What our rotations look like? And you could hear a pin drop in that gym in the first quarter. It was silent. Nobody was talking on defense. And when those things don't happen, your defense breaks down, and that's exactly what happened in the first quarter. Second quarter got a little better, I felt like. Started doing some things a little bit better. And then at halftime, we kind of, coming out of half, I kind of challenged them, like, hey, you guys have got to pick up. You got to pick up your defensive intensity. I thought we did a really good job of that in the third quarter for the most part. And then late in the game, we kind of wavered again defensively, and they got it to within 9, which probably should have been a 15 or plus point lead. But, at the end of the day, we talked to girls about, hey, you're going to have these games. You've just got to make sure your quote unquote bad basketball, the stretches of that are a a lot less than what they were that night. You gotta someone's got to right the ship. You got to step up. We got to start communicating and getting back to the basic fundamentals of how we play defense and what we're trying to do from a game plan perspective. Credit to them, like you said, they're much improved from last year. That number 21, the Klippenstein girl, she's a stud inside. Luckily, we had her in foul trouble, or it might have gone a different way. But I would say the thing we did a really good job of, aside from all the stuff I could critique, we ran our sets and our actions to get looks that we needed when we needed them, and kind of going at mismatches and going at people that were in foul trouble. So that was a silver lining in that game. But yeah, fortunate to sneak out of there with the win, albeit it wasn't the greatest basketball I've ever seen.
And you mentioned, right, it's a win, so you stay undefeated. You're still on top. One thing I want to talk about that game, you had some foul trouble as well in that game, but you're missing Abby Owens, and Abby, if you look at the stats, just points per game, right? She's, I think, 4 or 5 points a game. She's in that, so it's not like you're missing. Like the boys did, Jet Cornett on Tuesday night. You're not missing your lead score. But maybe just talk about what it means, and not just specifically to Abby, but what it means to team chemistry when all of a sudden now someone else is starting. Now the bench, everyone shifts up, and just how that operates maybe in a game like that dictates how that game goes.
Yeah, it puts someone else in the starting rotation, maybe a spot that they haven't played in very much. So kind of how you start the game. They're used to coming off the bench and kind of seeing how the game's flowing and how they can impact it. So now they've got to impact the game from the start. So that's a little different, not just for the girls that start the game, but the girl that has to come in and start in place of that person that's out. Abby does a good, yeah, like I said, Abby's not going to lead us in points necessarily, but she does a good job on the floor of kind of being the glue that holds us together at times. Kind of keeps everybody in the right direction, good on defense, does a lot of the little stuff that not everybody wants to do, or maybe that goes unseen. So not having her probably hurt a little bit, obviously. But I think we've got enough depth and talent down that bench that shouldn't phase us as much as it did that night. And that was something we talked about, like, hey, it's got to be next man up. Because what's to say that Abby or Lexi or Bailey gets 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the game? Everyone's got to be prepared for that situation to happen, and then be ready to come in and be impactful. So not glad that it's happening. Obviously we want all of our players to be healthy. We want Ab to get back on the court. But it's good for us, maybe long term, seeing, hey, how do these people respond in those moments, and then how can we help them respond better if indeed this happens again? Because sickness is kind of running through everyone right now, so it's just something that we've got to deal with, and we've got to be prepared for more than anything else. Just everyone's got to be ready to understand that could happen. We've got to be prepared.
So you get to the next night, and it's back-to-back games. We talked about last week. This week kind of was setting up like a tournament week with 3 games. Putnam gets postponed because of predicted weather on Friday. But you get to that Polo game, and it wasn't necessarily a great start again. From the get-go, there was some foul trouble again, some players in some early foul trouble. But you were able to, I think, right the ship a little better in that game, and be much more efficient offensively. And your defense gave a whole lot more trouble to Polo in the full court, especially, than it did to Maysville on Monday night.
Yeah, I thought it was a little better. I wouldn't say it was the level at which we expected to be at, or the standard. But I thought the third quarter, if you kind of want to chalk it up to a quarter, I think we scored 25 in that quarter, and that was defense. We challenged them right before the third quarter. I kind of got in their ear, the girls that were going to start, and said, "Hey, this is your challenge. You guys have got to do X, Y, Z." And it all started on defense. It's always going to for us, and that's what jumps started our offense. I think the thing that we've got to get cleaned up moving forward, which the girls are aware of, we're pretty good at being pretty blunt with them. We've got to clean up individual defense on ball. I'll say it like I've been saying all year. If you can't close out on the basketball, you're going to put yourself and what we're seeing now is we're putting our teammates behind us in trouble, because the ball gets past us, and now they've got to pick up your matchup. So it's just little stuff that throughout the year, you hope that those things don't waver, but they do. Any team's going to go through that. So I thought we did a good job in the third quarter of cleaning that stuff up, but now we've got to get more in the mindset of we've got to put that together for 4 quarters, kind of like we did against North Harrison. So, you never want to have a cancellation in the game, but maybe right now for us, that's not a bad thing. We can kind of get some things cleaned up and hopefully get some people healthy, just because I think we are a little under the weather. So hopefully that kind of helps us down the road.
And so, Coach, you mentioned it, and I'll go back to it a second. Basketball is so symbiotic, right? Meaning all 5 players need to be playing in unison with each other. And if you're just a casual fan watching, I've heard it, you're sitting in the stands, you hear it, someone's like, especially when you're on defense, they're like, oh, come on. Well, that person, what you don't realize, they kind of got hung out to dry a little bit because someone else didn't do their job. We didn't rotate right. We didn't do those things correctly, especially on the defensive end. Right, offense, you can have a really great player that maybe can take over. Defensively, all 5 of those girls have to be playing in unison. And when you do, and you guys do a great job, especially full court, even half court, it looks beautiful. But when it's out of sync, just with one player maybe, talk about how that can just kind of upset that defensive rhythm you guys are trying to get.
Yeah, I think anybody that has studied basketball or knows a good deal about it, everyone's gonna look at the kid that made the foul and think, oh, that's on them. Well, if you really start digging a little bit deeper and you start slowing it down on film, you see that poor close-offs, or closeouts, like we call them, that puts your defense in rotation. And when your defense is getting into constant rotation, something's probably going to break down. And that is where we start to kind of dig in a little bit deeper of, hey, the first part of this is we've got to clean those off. Now you're going to get in rotations. Now the back end of that is, how do you get into a rotation? Who is rotating? Who's helping the helper? And then a lot of it is, are we getting them to a spot to start our defense where our defense is going to be more successful? For us, we like to push it to one side of the court. We think that benefits us, and then from there, we feel like it limits rotations. But again, if the closeoffs are bad, you're putting a big on a little sometimes, and sometimes that post player is not equipped to guard, someone that's a little bit faster than them or a little more shifty, and that creates problems. And a lot of it is, you've got to get the ball stopped outside the paint. If that ball gets near the paint, doesn't mean that it's going to score, but it's probably going to find weak side. And if that weak side hasn't helped the helper, again, you're in another rotation. And if you're late, you're getting the foul. So like you said, it's very symbiotic in the fact that when it's all clicking, it's probably one of the most beautiful things to watch. But when it's not clicking, it can be the most frustrating thing to try to fix. And we talk a lot to our girls about communication. If you've ever played basketball and you go against a team that is talking the entire time on defense, it's hard to run your offense. It's hard to get into your sets, hard to get into your actions. And so that sometimes is as important as anything else. Just I think from a standpoint of an individual, if I'm communicating, my teammates behind me know that I'm doing my job, and if the people behind me are communicating, I've got trust in the fact that if this ball does get by me, they're there to help me out. So just little stuff that when it starts to fall apart, you've got to get it fixed as fast as possible.
Okay, so we mentioned the Putnam County game gets pushed back. That'll be your final conference game, and a chance to again secure undefeated GRC conference schedule. But next week, Hamilton tournament, and just looking at, I've got the bracket here on my other screen. Savannah, the 1 seed. You guys are the 2 seed. Lathrop, the 3. Lafayette County, the 4. I mean, there's some good teams in that tournament that you'll see. You get Trenton up first. Maybe just talk about that tournament here at the end, and as we start looking towards next week.
Yeah, that it's a great tournament. Basically from top to bottom, you've got to be ready to rock and roll. You're not going to get a night off. It seems like every year we play Trenton round 1, so we've got to take care of that matchup. Again, we've seen them once. I'm sure that they've gotten better. So we've got to take care of that. But it's a tournament you want to be in that time of the year. You want to get tested. You're going to see different looks. Lathrop's traditionally been a 1-3-1, very good in that, very physical. So you're going to see that style of zone. If you come up against Savannah, we've seen them once. They're physical. They play tough on D. They're really, really good with their ball screen offense. So it's about getting ourselves prepared for another 3-game week, and getting back to the fundamentals defensively, because ultimately you can't trick things up. You've got to be who you are, and then you've got to make sure you're trying to take away some of the things that are coming. So it's going to be about game prep again, just trying to get things cleaned up this week, knowing that weather's probably incoming. So we've got to do our work early. And obviously I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to see some Class 3 basketball where it's more physical, they let us play a little bit and we can get tested. That's why you're there, and hopefully that's what happens next week.
All right, well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Congratulations on the tournament championship, and man, looking forward to next week, that tournament down there, and then finishing up that conference schedule versus Putnam, and believing you'll get another conference championship. Big thanks again to Harrison County Community Hospital, who sponsors all of our interviews here on Sports Central, and thanks again to Coach Kale Watson.
Thanks, CF.